Hi everybody, how are you on this wonderfully glorious sunny Monday, 2nd of March, eh? I think spring is apparently upon us. That means we'll probably have snow in the next month or so. But yeah, welcome to part one. I'd been promising that we were going to do some work on breathing techniques. And with those breathing techniques, they should help us to calm down and quieten the mind and hopefully allow us to get a better night's sleep. These breathing techniques are also very, very useful if you're suffering from stress or anxiety, depression, you're having panic attacks, those sorts of things. So, yeah, I'm really happy to be getting into this, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So the first thing I'm really going to do to sort of through this week is talk about breathing and meditation, how the two are linked, how that's linked to our different levels of consciousness. Because when you start breaking into something that the body does automatically, such as breathing, you may know yourself, you're lying in bed and you're just about to fall asleep, and then for some reason you think about your breathing and then you can't breathe normally and you feel maybe short of breath, or you get a bit anxious and then you're like waking up. And so it's one of those automated systems of the body, like the heart beating. If we had to think every time the heart had to beat, imagine how much time that would take from us. Automatic things like the body looking after itself, producing cells, and maybe protecting us, hopefully, from viruses. Um, God forbid anyone's going to be getting the coronavirus, but yeah, the body's an amazing thing, and it likes to do things automatically because basically it doesn't trust us to do those things by thinking of having to do them all the time. And if you really think about it, imagine if you had to remember to breathe, remember to tell your heart to beat, remember it to start working on your digestive system, remember it to, or remind it, think of it to do other things. We would never have any space or capacity to get anything else done in the day. But more than that, it doesn't trust us. These are things that keep us alive and have to happen regularly. So it takes over, it makes out that it's not using any brain space, but it does, and allows us to live our lives the way we hopefully want to live them. So one of the things with breathing for me was, as soon as you start looking at any breathing technique at all, your body will try to resist. So please, 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 none of these things happen overnight. None of these things you do once and you become an expert at. They take time, trial, error. You'll find your own ways of maybe doing things. For example, when I got into doing visualization and relaxation breathing techniques, I found that what worked best for me wasn't hugging trees or looking at candles or going or anything of that nature. I went out and bought a very, very expensive pair of speakers, and I used to blast out music. And I found that when I'm immersed in my music, I could just get sort of carried away with that and just lose myself within the music itself. So there's no right or no wrong. Please feel free to experiment, but please, 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 please don't be put off because your body tries to resist what you're doing, because it doesn't want you taking control of something that it does automatically to keep you alive. So that said, and I'll repeat it time and time again, because it will get to you. I can guarantee you now, hand on heart, it does with every single person. And it's something that you have to have a bit of patience with, a bit of determination, but an open mind and a warm heart to the fact that it's a bit like going to the gym or going out jogging. You don't put your trainers on having never run before and suddenly go out and run a marathon. I mean, if you do, full respect to you, but you're going to feel it afterwards. Your body will ache in places that you've never ever felt or heard of. You'll have muscles that you've never imagined starting to ache and become painful. The same as hitting the gym. You don't walk into the gym, look at what the biggest guys are pressing, and suddenly pick up a weight and do that. You're going to harm yourself. So baby steps. Every time you practice, it's another step forward to getting towards your goal. And the goal will be becoming proficient enough in some of the techniques, the ones that help you. And this is why it's also trial and error. Because every single body, every single person is different. As a complementary health therapist or alternative medicine, or whichever way you call it, as an aromatherapist and reflexologist, not everybody that came into me responded in the same way to having a massage or the oils or the treatments that I did. The same way as if you know people that have been for acupuncture, some will say it was good, some will say it was bad. So everybody is unique, everybody is different, and we need to celebrate that. You know, for God's sake, if we were all the same, imagine how boring it would all be. So these are techniques where with any breathing, you'll be starting to go into different levels of consciousness, different states. And that for me is what meditation is all about. Now, before people start freaking out and going, oh, it's some namby-pamby, some guru stuff or whatever, think about the different levels of consciousness that you've gone through today. You know, think about when you first wake up in the mornings. You know, you have mornings where the alarm goes off, you bounce out of bed, you're firing on all cylinders, everything's going smoothly. And then you have those other days where you maybe switch off the alarm, have a bit of a snooze, you get out of bed, you trip over, you go to pour the milk and spill it everywhere, drop your cereal. Then you have other days where you're sort of in between those and every different level. And then some days you wake up really quickly, you're on the ball. Other days it takes you time. But even when you're awake, you know, what about those times when you've driven and you think, hold on, what was the last mile all about? I don't remember driving the last mile. You know, you haven't had an accident, you haven't caused an accident, but you can't recall the last mile and what was going on because you're in a different level of consciousness at that point. So we all go through many different levels of consciousness throughout the whole of the day. So this isn't some freaky thing. This isn't some, as I say, I'm not a guru. I don't profess to be an absolute expert in any of this. But what I do know, this was from some work that I did in 2002. So this is 18 years old since I delivered this course that we're taking some of the information from. If you see me looking down, it's because I've got the notes in front of me, and it was a course that was done for some schools over 10 weeks to try and help people that were having issues around anxiety and stress. All of them had got some sleeping difficulties. So although obviously the site is I just want to sleep and doesn't mention stress or anxiety, and I know I've got my other site which is kick that out of stress, and I will post this on there as well. This is about trying to find ways that relaxes you, that calms the mind, that allows those thoughts to stop. And like the breathing, thoughts are something that we can't control. Or rather, we can control the breathing, sorry, but thoughts are transient. You know, they come in at their own will. Scientists still do not understand which part of the brain makes thought, why it makes them. So that was one of the hardest things for me with such a busy mind when I got into this, was I'd be trying to think about the breathing technique and being calm, and then I'd realize I'm having a thought. And oh boy, did I get upset with myself. You know, this Be Perfect, I've got to be good at this. This is what's supposed to help me. And I really struggled and at times got really quite angry with myself And I thought this is quite counterintuitive because I'm more angry that I couldn't do it than I was before I started. But as I say, you give time to this, you work out what's right for you, and you practice. When I say practice, what about when you were sitting on the toilet? you know, try breathing in a certain way for a couple of minutes. Or if you're on a lunch break, you don't have to do hours and hours at a time. I know that there are people like Shaolin monks who dedicate hours and hours and hours of their time to meditation, and other people like that. But and if that's the way that you want to go and you can afford to give that many hours a day, then fine. But this is what I would call an outside in way of trying to quieten down that mind and get you in the right space so that you can have a good night's sleep. So that said, have a think about some of the times when our breathing changes. Think about when we're angry. We tend to stop breathing. We tend to hold our breath, especially if we're getting really angry. Or think about when you get excited, it can become faster and shallow, which can also be like hypertension as well. So there'll be some similarities between certain feelings and the way the body reacts in the way that it breathes. We tend to realize that when we're more relaxed, it tends to be a much slower and deeper breath. And that allows all sorts of things in the body to happen. And one of the things when you slow down your breathing, it impacts on your pulse. And the science shows that when you bring your pulse rate down to around about 60 beats per minute, there are chemicals that are released within the brain which gets the body ready for sleep mode. So, excuse me, sorry. Meditation and breathing techniques are a way of tapping into the things that the body does normally and gives you a bit of control back in what can be a very hectic life. Think about stress and feeling anxious. It tends to be fast and shallow and a little bit panicky at times. So there's lots and lots and lots of emotions or feelings that we have, which are all driven by thought, by the way. But there are a lot of emotions that we feel, such as panic attacks and the like, which affect the way that we breathe. And if we're not aware of those, if we don't start to take heed of these things, then we're not really looking to try and get over some of the reasons of why our bodies respond in the way that they do. Now, one of the big things that affects us is, and I think most people will have heard of this by now, is fight or flight. And there's another thing missing from that, which is you normally have a fright first. So a situation happens and we either leg it or we stand and fight. Now, this is a natural body response that's been developed by the body to be an automatic response, and it causes a multitude of things to happen within the body. And one of the things is it changes the breathing because it needs more oxygen into the body to either run away, which can often be the best defense, or you stand and fight. Either way, you need oxygenated blood within your muscles to allow you to do these things. So when we're under stress and suffering from the fight or flight reaction that the body has, this was only ever meant to be a short-term response to the action that's happened, to the fright that we've had. But the problem in modern day living is we can stay in a state of stress and within the fight or flight for many hours at a time, and this brings a lot of fatigue because of the pressures that it puts on the body. And over time, this is why people become less and less and less resilient, and why the physical and emotional and mental effects become overwhelming to the point where somebody's truly stressed. And this is a real passion of mine, honestly. It really is, because people use the word stress far too frequently these days. It's become such a common term. But the reality is, if you are suffering from stress, then you are suffering a disorder and you cannot cope with what's going on. And it's very rarely that just one thing out of the blue will do that. You know, the majority of the people that I've seen, the thousands of people that I've worked with over the last 20 odd years, don't fall at the first hurdle. You know, we look at the pressures that are placed upon us and upon us and upon us and upon us and upon us. And, you know, our natural instinct is to overcome and to keep and carry on. What we don't do very well is understand what those effects are, but that's more for the other site, and I'll be going through that in more detail on the other site. So we look at the way that the breathing changes, and we look at some of the side effects. So some of the long-term effects of fight or flight can be hyperventilation. So this is over-breathing, rapid breathing, and it disturbs the natural balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. So basically, we end up with too much carbon dioxide in our body and not enough oxygen. And this leads us to try and inhale faster and faster breathing, to the point where, you know, some people can pass out, they can faint, become dizzy, disorientated. And as they become more panicky, the breathing gets worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where you feel you don't have any control. So that leads us into the panic attacks, which is hyperventilation, pounding heart, we sweat, we get shaking, nausea, and that feeling of out of control, being out of control. And it can lead to terror in a lot of people. So breathing is, to state something that's obvious, is really, really important. It's important to understand what it's all about. Now, if you're not suffering anyway and everything's hunky-dory in your life, you're probably thinking, what an absolute waste of time. Well, that's fine. That's okay. But perhaps this information may help you at a point where you do need it. So I think it's for everybody, and it's knowledge and it's understanding. One of the other ones is the prolonged anxiety, and this is a feeling of stress can continue as breathing is too shallow and fast, and that leads to fatigue. As I say, not enough oxygen is being hailed into the body. Think of being at altitude. If you've ever been at altitude, at high altitude, where you've got oxygen deprivation, mountaineers and these sorts of things have to really understand how that impacts on their body, because it can kill you. So, you know, it's something that's really important and can be really useful, and hopefully you're going to find this of use to yourself. So one of the things I used to get people to do in the groups, once we've sort of opened this up to people and there's a conversation, which obviously this is just one way, and people start to share their experiences, I say to them, right, stand up, place your one hand on your abdomen and breathe normally, and see if the hands are going up and down. Because if you're not breathing correctly, what tends to happen is you'll be breathing from your chest. And that's where we know you're not taking in the correct breath. So one hand would be here. So I'm going to have to stand up. I'll chop my head off. One hand there and the other hand on your abdomen. And as you breathe in, if it's this hand that's making all the movements rather than this hand, then you're not going to be taking in the correct levels of oxygen into the business. Now, again, because the body's very good at automating this, you probably won't even realize that you've been breathing from your chest rather than from your abdomen. It may be that you're suffering some emotional problems, and there's a strong belief that emotional problems are stored in the stomach. And from my experience, that seems to be the reason why a lot of people are suffering with so many disorders around eating, especially IBS. And unfortunately, IBS is one of these ones that once you get it, you can't get rid of it, and you've basically just tensed your muscles up in your stomach for that long that they will always pretty much be tensed. You can have an effect on the effects of IBS, and that's something I've learnt over the years, so it doesn't trouble me in the same way that it used to. And anybody suffering with IBS, well, I'm not going into detail, but it's like having food poisoning every day. You don't know how long you're going to be in the bathroom for. It's very, very uncomfortable. Anyway, we can save that for another time. So check your breathing. If you feel that you've gone into a different emotional state, it might be useful to just place your hands on your chest and the other hand on your abdomen and ask yourself, where am I breathing from? And if you find that you're breathing from the chest, then you could go into one of the breathing techniques. So a lot of this is about making you aware of something that, as I say, the body does automatically. Now, over the coming weeks, I will go through a number of sort of different techniques. And one of the ones that we're sort of going to look at first of all is called centering the breath. Now, what this allows you to do is take control a little bit and to allow you to take in a little bit more oxygen than you were previously, because when we breathe from the chest, we're not getting in enough oxygen. Now, because you may have been in this state for a while, you may be becoming a little bit panicky before you go to sleep, because you're thinking, I'm not going to sleep, I need to sleep, I've got to get up in the morning, I'm tired already, how on earth? And it's very hard often to recognize that you're having those thoughts, because they've become second nature. A lot of people realize that they are having those thoughts, but it's not until they speak to somebody like myself or another coach or a counselor or somebody that specializes in this area. It's just become the norm over a period of time, and they're not aware that they're having thoughts that lead them to the body to reacting in this way. But the body will only react in that way if there's a thought attached to it. Now, that's something we'll cover later on when we're looking at visualization and quieting the mind. But centering the breath, first of all, I find it best to have a high back chair, like a dining room chair. And what I'd like you to do is sort of get yourself in the chair. I'm sitting at one at the moment. Move your back away from the back of the chair and try to sit up straight, but I don't want you tensed out or trying to do a military thing and I've got to be, try to sit comfortably, but with your back away from the backrest, with your legs apart, just comfortably, not legs akimbo, but just slightly apart, and then to place your palms palm down onto the top of your thighs and relaxing your shoulders, but at the same time trying to sit up straight. So focus on breathing. Slowly take control by allowing each exhale to get longer. Start to count. So initially you're going to start off slowly, so you may breathe in for 2 counts, then have a slight pause and exhale for 4. Now, it's always double with this particular technique. So centering the breath, if you breathe in for 3, then you exhale for 6, and if you inhale for 4, you will exhale for 8. Now, because you're changing your oxygen carbon dioxide levels within the body, you may feel dizzy, because you're actually going to be taking in more oxygen than you used to. So go at your own pace. If you feel dizzy, then stop and breathe normally and then try to do it again. Now, for me, the optimum way to breathe in is to breathe in through your nostrils, because that is when we will activate the abdomen. Okay, now it's something else you probably won't have recognized or realized that you're doing, but as we start to breathe in through the mouth when we're under stress or tension or panicky or under some sort of pressure, our bodies get used to using our breathing in through our mouth. Now, the actual best way to breathe in is breathe in through your nose, because then you have to use your abdomen, and it means you get a much, much, much better breath in. And then you exhale through your mouth. not your mouth and your nose, or breathing in through your mouth and your nose. So the breath in is through your nose. So you might want to breathe in for 2, pause, and then exhale for 4. Pause, inhale for 2, pause, exhale for 4. Now, even just having done that twice, I can feel a little rush because I've been talking and I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I've been breathing through my chest more than I have my nose. I felt my heart rate. I felt my pulse. Now, I'm more susceptible to feeling that because I've been doing this a long time, and I can feel the reactions very quickly when I go into these different states. And depending on the state that I was in before I started breathing, I know what to expect. So as I say, because you'll actually be breathing in more oxygen, although you're exhaling for twice the length, which might sound a bit weird really, because you're getting rid of twice as much carbon dioxide, because you breathe in through the nose and using the abdomen, you'll actually be breathing in a lot more oxygen than you possibly have done throughout the day. So as I say, that's a technique called centering the breath. Now, some people like it, some people don't. Other people find that, well, it doesn't help because I'm still thinking of things. That's besides the point at the moment. What we're looking at is getting you used to breaking into the automated cycle of you breathing, and getting you to take control of that system, the body trusting you to do it, because it will fight in lots of different ways. It could make you feel like, oh gosh, I'm out of breath now. Well, you're not. It just doesn't want you messing around and pissing about with something it does to keep you alive. It doesn't trust you enough. So again, it's a way of the body realizing after a period of time it gets a lot easier. You won't have those effects unless you've been all panicky and out of breath beforehand. And then even people that have practiced it for years understand that as they take control again, they could get dizzy. They could get to the point where they're like, oh. If that happens, you just stop doing the technique, just come away for a second, and your breathing will bring itself back to its own balance. So, as I say, practice, I won't say makes perfect, because what is perfection? It's different to everybody, isn't it? But you'll become more proficient. It'll become something that is done a lot more easily. So this is a good way of trying to get your body to the best oxygen carbon dioxide level before you go to sleep. So you can practice it anywhere. You can practice it in the car. As I say, it's good to start with, if you can do it on a dining room chair with your back just away from the backrest, sitting up straight, putting your palms flat down onto your thighs. Your legs are slightly apart in a comfortable position, however that is for you. And then you can rest your shoulders, but you're still sitting up straight. And when you sit up straight, you open up the diaphragm, because often we're crunched over sitting at computers, and stress and anxiety make us sort of curl up and have hunched shoulders. And for goodness sake, how many of us work on computers all day long? I'm glad I don't anymore, because it was really messing with my health. So as I say, centering the breath, and you can research this yourself as well if you want to go online and have a look at something and try and go into a bit more detail, then that's up to you. Now, another one is called yoga breath, and this is supposed to have a calming effect on the body, helping clearing the mind and soothe tension. Again, it has you sitting in a chair, back straight, not against the back of the chair, but it asks you to close your eyes when you do this one. And you place, I'll take my glasses off, you place a hand against your face, And you might think, well, that's not much good because I can't breathe now. No, don't stop yourself from breathing. But you want to put the center finger there, and you're going to use your ring finger, which is this one, and that's going to be on your left nostril, and your thumb is going to be on your right nostril. And basically, you're going to take turns at breathing in through one nostril. So in this case, I'm going to let the ring finger go. And then I'm going to use the other nostril. Both on the nostrils. Now that's yoga breath. You're supposed to do it with your eyes closed. Now, with this one, I would just say you breathe in to the point that you're comfortable. You don't necessarily need to count, but if you're breathing in for 2 and exhaling for 6, that's more like your center breath. It tends to be more of an even. So if you're breathing in for 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, I mean, some people will breathe in for 20, but they've been doing this a long time. Probably don't smoke like I do either, which is naughty of me, but there we go. So if you're going to breathe in for 3, then exhale for 3. Just 1 second. I knew I'd done something wrong with that one. Right, okay, so the fingers on the forehead, you're breathing through the one nostril. Put them 2 together, pause, and then exhale through the other nostril. So everything is through the nostrils with this. I'm so sorry if should have read my notes first. So this is all nostrils. So there's nothing there about exhaling through the mouth. You inhale and exhale through the nostril, but you alternate. So if you inhale through your left nostril, you then put your fingers together and exhale through the right one, and then you inhale through the right one, pause, finger on, exhale through the left one, inhale through the left one, fingers together, pause, exhale through the right one. So this is no exhaling through the mouth. I've never really used that technique, which is why I should have read my notes first, because for me to breathe correctly, it's inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. But this one, you inhale and exhale through alternate nostrils. So you have an exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. The fact that you put the finger on the forehead and that you have your eyes closed gets into a whole different other side of things, and it's about chakras and all sorts of different things, which again you can research if you want to, but that one is yoga breath. So what I'd like you to do over the coming week before I release the next one is to be conscious of your breathing at different times. You know, a bit like when you're looking to buy a car, you suddenly, let's say you're going to go and buy, I don't know, a Ford Focus. There's thousands of them out there. But until you're looking to buy the car, you won't notice the thousands of Ford Focuses that were on the road. As soon as that comes into your mind, and it gets all sort of weird and wonderful, because there is a part of the brain that when you've told it to do something like that, alerts you automatically to what you want to see. So that part of the brain will kick in. There's a science in there behind it. It's something that the body does. It's a natural thing. that once we've alerted it to wanting to know something or see something all the time, it will always wake us up to the fact that it's happening. So the more that you remember to think about how am I breathing at this point. So let's see, you're on the way to work, you're driving, and as there are so many wonderful drivers in the world these days, somebody cuts you up or doesn't use their indicator and you get a little bit now I'm not saying that you've gone into complete road rage or you've been gesticulating or whatever else, but even things like that, if it goes against some of our morals and beliefs and the way we think other people should drive, and we have that thought, what a bloody idiot they are, and I'm being nice with my words there, you'll notice the difference in your breathing. Now, please don't let go of the steering wheel and put a hand on your chest and a hand on the abdomen at that point, unless you are stationary. It might sound stupid, but I know somebody that did it once and then tried to blame me for almost having an accident. And I went, well, I'm not being funny, but why did you I was going to say what sort of idiot, sorry. Why would you let go of the steering wheel to check how you're breathing? Because the next thing that's likely to happen is you're going to have an accident and your breathing's definitely going to be out of kilter. Maybe at your desk, you've just had that call, then an appointment's been moved, or your boss has just dumped a whole load of extra work on your desk. And just say to yourself, how am I breathing now? Am I breathing from my chest? Am I breathing from my abdomen? Before you go into bed, ask yourself, how am I breathing? Just become more conscious about the way that you're breathing. So that's the end of the first week. I hope you found it interesting. As we go through the coming weeks, I'll look at doing 2-2 breath, and how to manage panic attacks. And one of the big things for sleep is progressive muscular relaxation. And that's one of the best breathing techniques to be able to help you relax your body before you go to bed and try to sleep. And I think we're covering that in week 3 or 4. So have a great week. As I say, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you feel that other people will get benefit from this and you want them to join the group, then just get them to ask to join the group, and I'm sure that we'll accept them in. Don't beat yourselves up with anything that we've done. And remember, the more you practice controlling the breathing and being aware of your breathing, the better you'll become at other techniques as we go along. So these are easy ones to get you into it. And centering the breath for me is a really good one to readjust those carbon dioxide oxygen levels, for me more so than the yoga one. But as I say, that's just my preference. It may not be yours, and I appreciate I did get things wrong with the yoga to start with, but I'm pretty sure I sort of corrected myself. Any issues with that, then let us know and I'll put another small video up and do it correctly to start with. But as I say, you have a great week. I hope you get some great sleep, and please keep engaging with the group. And yeah, hopefully see you next week, unless I've bored you to death and you're not coming on the next one, which I hope to God hasn't happened. But yeah, have a great week and we'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.